Count on that. Hold on one second. I want you in the thing, but
I mean, it is the Brandon White show.
this is the Brandon White show, Brian. This is the first episode of the Brandon White show. You know, it's gone through. Well, we're going to talk about this because you were talking about it before we jumped on here. It's gone through 4 name changes. It was Build a Business with Brandon, uh, Build a Business Success Secrets, The Edge, and now it's going to be the Brandon White Show, and I'm never changing it again.
Yeah.
Which I probably should have called it the Brandon White Show in the beginning.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Move this mic up.
Oh yeah, more. I was originally
Here we go. Let's adjust it.
Is it good now?
Nope, too far.
Oh.
All right. We want to make sure that we capture your voice in here because I don't know if I'll ever get you again. You're going to be on some beach somewhere building sand art.
Yeah, probably I'll be nearby. This is my favorite stretch of coast. I spent a lot of my childhood traveling up and down between San Francisco and Santa Cruz.
You're from Santa Cruz.
Correct. So yeah, almost every weekend my father would drive up the coast to San Francisco and draw on the sand for hours and hours and hours. I'd be at the beach finding ways to entertain myself while my dad walked around in circles.
So how did that happen? We were talking before we jumped on here. I was riding my bike down for listeners. I ride my bike down the coast for 3, 4, 5 times a week, and you see everything when you ride your bike all the time. I mean, you can see I take a picture of all the beaches throughout the seasons because they change so significantly. And this winter, as you know, they've changed like crazy because of the storms. But just I guess this winter, I'm riding down there. What was
Pomponio?
Pomponio Beach, and I caught it out of the corner of my eye because you come down that big hill from stage on your bike and you're doing 40 miles an hour, hoping that no one comes out of that driveway and kills you.
Yeah.
And I caught this. I was like, that looks like there's something in the sand. And I had not seen that. And I don't know if that was maybe the first time you did. Have you done that beach a few times?
Well, typically Pomponio is not a good place to draw. I haven't been the sand drawing obsession for me started about 3 years ago, but I have been extremely prolific since then, and Pomponio is typically not very good. The sand tends to dry out there. It's more of a steep beach, and steeper beaches will dry out faster and not have quite the right conditions. But after the big storms, the historic storms, the beach became incredibly good for drawing. So I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, I've seen you a few times there since, but I looked and I had just listened to a Joe Rogan podcast on UFOs.
Yeah.
So I took a picture and then I was like, you know what? I don't know if this guy's ever, I didn't know anything about you, right? I saw it down there. I stopped. I took some photos. I posted on Instagram and I tagged Joe Rogan and some other people in it and it got like 1 million views because I said, oh, I think the aliens have come to the Northern California coast.
Well, yeah, I'm putting out a lot of messages for them. I haven't heard back yet, but yeah, still waiting on a response.
Well, I think, you know, you have something that's pretty incredible. And the drawings you do. So my first question, and I got a lot of questions about this, but you got into it. Your dad is a sand artist and he is well known. And I started to say, I had told a friend about sand art, basically from Half Moon Bay to Santa Cruz is what I saw. He's like, there's a famous guy who does it in San Francisco. And then I was like, well, who am I? Like, this is the guy I've seen. I want to have him. He seems like he's got incredible art. And then it turns out that's your dad.
Yeah, it was Ocean Beach was his favorite spot back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and we'd go up there all the time, and he would bring a disposable film camera and he'd climb up to the top of the cliff after he completed the drawing. And there weren't really drones back then, so you couldn't, he had to hire helicopters, which had a really big cost. So about in 2015, with the drone technology getting a lot better and like giving more people access, now there's people all over the world doing sand drawing, and it's really cool to see different people's styles and people expressing themselves. I've been trying to bring more people into it and collaborate with other people that are interested in trying it out. Um, in a couple days, I have a nature school from San Jose. They want to bring all the kids out, and I'll bring like 20 rakes and you know participate with
That's
them,
super
create
cool.
something.
How did your dad like? Do you know what possessed your dad to start that?
Well, I think I was about 6 years old. He was working in the restaurant, and when he'd get off work, he'd go down to the beach down by Santa Cruz Wharf. And I remember when he started doing it, it was right when my grandmother passed away. Yeah, his mother, and she was extremely talented in math. She was a math teacher, and her focus was on the Fibonacci sequence. So he took a lot of inspiration from her, and he won't admit it, but I feel like his art is kind of a tribute to her. Um, she had 9 children, and they all ended up doing really interesting different things. One of them has a hang gliding company. One of them owns a bed store, and then various other people, a lot of people in business, and but I feel like the a lot of his drawings are geometric. I've always enjoyed drawing on paper since I was very young. So I feel like my drawings are kind of inspired by the things I was interested in as a 5-year old, obsessively drawing these mazes and like nature scenes and different textures, and then kind of like also inspired by his work, the geometric, which is kind of goes back to grandma.
So your dad, you sort of went over that fast, but your dad's a chef or was a chef?
Yeah, he was a chef for 15 years at Gabriella Cafe in Santa Cruz, and there's actually an event coming up next month where they're taking over the street to put a huge table down the street in front of the restaurant where he worked. And the table is associated with his business, which is called Outstanding in the Field, which travels all around the world and the country, putting on these events on
These dinners,
farms. Yeah, big farm dinners, which tell the story of like where the food comes from, and celebrate the all the people in that process. And I've been trying to convince him to bring more of the art stuff into the food stuff and mix those two worlds, because those are his two focuses. So I've been collaborating with him on creating these large scale artworks and then placing the table within them.
I was
Um,
going to say you do the art. If you do the art and he does the cooking, then that seems like a good business.
yeah, well, it's he doesn't do the cooking anymore. He did it in the early days. It started in 1999, but now it's all guest chefs and guest farmers. So it's more about like highlighting people who are outstanding in their field.
Yeah, I
And
actually saw, and I was really upset that I missed it, but I discovered another guest here on the coast in my journey researching you last week. Didn't wasn't there one at a farm right down here on the left-hand side as you're going south on Saturday night?
yeah, there was just one here. There was I was doing a drawing that morning, and I had an interview for this magazine called Go Make History Today, I think it's called. It's kind of a South Silicon Valley magazine. But but I was down south, and I had planned to go up north, and after my drawing, and film my father with the drone doing another drawing, which happened to be on the beach right in front of the event.
Is that Tanitas?
In that area. Yeah. So, but there was too much fog that day, so you couldn't see the drawing
Oh
from the
man.
ranch up there. I believe it was Market Guard Ranch.
Market Guard, yeah, and there's a guy named Eric and his wife and kids.
Yeah, I love them.
Well, yeah,
I've
I didn't
documented other events there.
you have
Uh-huh.
the when I was researching, I was like, this guy's crazy. He's got some tree house and he flies to, and then he's toured with Neil Young. He's got a whole history too. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I found that researching you. Yeah, the fog was terrible this weekend. It kept me off my bike. It was cold.
But I hope to, realize that another time is basically the event up on the hill, the drawing on the beach, and then the, drone flight from the drawing to the table, you know,
Oh, that'd
seeing,
be awesome.
but, yeah, we've been doing a bunch of different projects working together, and then I've been doing my solo projects as well, and
So did you grow up in Santa Cruz?
yeah, I grew up on, Pleasure Point. Still in the same area where I grew up. I love to travel, and I've been, invited to do projects in Mexico and, other places.
So you started the art 3 years ago?
Yeah, I was doing art on paper and, I was making videos, I was expressing myself in other ways, but, the sand drawing started in 2020, kind of in the worst part of the pandemic. It was,
Well, you were alone
motivating.
out there, right?
Yeah, I don't know, things seemed to it was kind of, yeah, it was a challenging time and that, like, kind of spurred on my, interest to, like, go out there and make something positive.
What were you doing before that?
I was focusing on, the drone stuff, so I've been flying drones for over 6 years. I'm a commercially licensed, pilot, Part 107. So I was doing, music videos, farm tours, lots of, wedding videos. So I was creating all these different, videos and photos for people with the drone, and I was really into that. Every day I would make something, and it didn't even have sand drawings in it, except when I was, documenting my father's work, and then at some point, it was like it clicked. It's like, "Hey, I could be making the drawings and documenting with the drone and doing the editing, and then I can, like, create these stories and share them."
Did your dad teach you this? I mean, you started in 2020, you were drawing on paper, but I've watched you several times since that first time when I tracked you down, and then I somehow kept searching for sand art, Santa Cruz, sand art, Half Moon Bay, and eventually got your Instagram, which and then I was like, that's the guy because I saw you posted from that day with a little video and everything.
Which day? Oh, the day that you were
The day
inviting me
that
back?
I originally met you, and I watched you, Brighton, and it doesn't appear to me that you have any strings or any tools necessarily.
Well, I'm not against tools. It's mostly because there's, a limited amount of time for the low tide. So any excess, thing that I'm fussing around with that I can remove from the process, that'll make me able to create something before it's all, washed away. But I have used strings for, like, very large circles. For any circle over 30 feet is uses a string. But the smaller circles are freehand. Um, but it's interesting. I can look back at my projects from a couple of years ago, and the circles weren't that circular. And then now, after doing several thousand circles, they're a lot more circular. So a lot of it's intuition and practice. But probably 95% of the time, there's no tools involved other than a rake and a drone, to document, tell the story. And the drone is just used to capture it. It's not used to draw it. So
Just like a rake that you rake your leaves with?
yeah, actually, it's some people. There's other sand artists that use adjustable rakes and different things. I just use a simple leaf rake, 26 inches wide. I need a new one every 3 months or so if I'm making something like every day. But
You do all that artwork with a leaf rake that I can buy at Ace Hardware.
yeah, that's I have a lot of dreams for making different kinds of art on the ground, on with crops, with growing plants in patterns and flowers and sculptures using mulch and other material. But with my limited budget for now, the sand drawing is the biggest thing I can do with just a $20 rake from Home Depot.
That blows my mind that you that's just a rake. You don't. I mean, it's incredible. It really is just simply incredible. Now, do you draw these drawings and then, or you envision? Do you draw them on paper and then bring your paper with you?
No, I know another sand artist in Santa Cruz that he draws it out on paper first, and some people like to do that. But typically, it's just a general idea, or a lot of the times it's no idea. I get there and it's just intuition, and sometimes it'll be the idea will come to me 5 minutes before I start it. Other times I'm half an hour into it, and it completely shifts and becomes something else than I had originally intended.
That's just amazing. Are you listening to music or the ocean or what are you listening to?
Yeah, that's one difference between my father and I. He never listens to music, and it's very like calm and meditative. For me, it's like really loud music. I'm going as fast as I can, trying to make something as big as possible, and like running around. So it's a high energy form of meditation for sure.
What type of music are you listening to?
Usually like fast paced electronic music or like dance music.
So the beat, you're doing like 180 beats a minute or something crazy.
Yeah. So like really really fast, high energy.
Do you mix? Do you have a mix? Like I have a mix when I ride my bike. Do you have mixes for different beaches?
um I should. I'm getting kind of bored, but I've just been letting the algorithm pick based on my past listing history.
Or you use Spotify or Apple Music or
I
something?
use YouTube Music.
So you're using YouTube Music while you're out there on your it's on your phone and you're just streaming it.
Yeah, or if some of the beaches don't have cell service, so which is good for my focus, then I can't connect to the internet at all.
Then what do you do?
I have stuff downloaded. Yeah. So.
So you are creating it in real time.
Yeah, and a lot of it's based on the environmental conditions of the day, and I'm reacting to the unforeseen complications of life. It's drying out faster than I expected. The wind's picking up. The tide's coming in quicker than I expected, and different things I can't predict. So I have to modify my original plan and kind of adapt to the environment, which is something I really enjoy.
I feel like one of the things that's always amazes me, I can't sing and I can't play music. I guess maybe I could try, but it's just not something that's come naturally. But it always blows my mind for artists to create on the spot, right? Like somebody create. I watched that Beatles. I don't know. Did you watch the Beatles documentary? That one they released on Apple.
I haven't. I
Oh, you
haven't
should
watched.
watch that. I
Okay.
used to hate the Beatles.
Yeah.
Not hate them, they just annoyed me.
Yeah.
And then I watched that documentary and I was like, God, these people are some of the most talented people I've ever seen make music. Like, because you're watching music over 8 hours that make this album. What do you just get out of your car, grab your rake, get your techno music on, walk down to the beach, and just put your rake in the sand and start a line and then figure it out? Like, how does that happen?
Well, frequently there's new ideas that are just spontaneously coming to mind while I'm drawing. That seems to be a great like while I'm meditatively like raking, then new ideas will come up as I'm. That seems to be when the best ideas happen is when I'm in the process. But a lot of the time it's previous inspiration, previous designs like being remixed in a new form. It's not like coming out of a vacuum. It's a different new remix of previous ideas.
Do you think that your art reflects your mood of the day?
Yeah, for sure. It's very like it's very personal, especially when I'm not doing a commission and doing someone's logo or something. But
Well,
I appreciate
I
doing
want to
that
talk
too.
about that because that comes to how you make money. But I I was wondering as I thought about it and I watched you a few times, how do you feel when the tide comes up and I don't want to say ruins, but it like
Yeah.
I'm like I want to keep this guy's got this incredible art. He's been there. How many hours in general?
It's like 1 to 9 hours
Okay.
for a rake design, and then a sculpture, which is less common, but those can take up to 30, plus hours, or a week, or one of them was over 40 people and big machines. But
So these things take a long time. And then
yeah,
the tide comes up. And I feel like this is like a Burning Man moment where you build this and it disappears. And a lot of people in life want to hold on to things. I was just having a discussion with some people, and I said that I thought that as I got older and got more money, that I actually wanted less. And there's this whole idea that at the end of the day, there was a key here, Brighton. This where was it? Oh yeah, that's a new one. I had this key for my car, and it's in my drawer there, and it really that car I drove the car across country when I came to California, and like it really held the memories. But at the end of the day, the key is a reminder of the memories. The memories are really in your head,
yeah,
and that art you will remember. Now you document it with pictures, which is really cool. But
yeah.
are you ever sad when the tide comes up?
Um, sure. It's kind of like a mixed feeling. Because on a positive side, it makes a fresh canvas for the next day to try something new. Um, but also I put a lot of effort into it, and then watch that all get washed away. It's especially disappointing if I have a malfunction with the camera equipment, then I can't. I do like to share what I've created, um, visually communicate with photos and videos. But yeah, this one experience in front of the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk where I'd worked 3 days in a row, late in the night each day, without taking any breaks, and just like working all day, digging. And I was creating these pyramids and a fractal like Fibonacci sequence. And then I basically, it was all timed. So it was up the beach a bit, but there was a higher tide coming a few days down the line. So I got there at 3 in the morning for the wash away, and I watched 35 hours of work. Um, and I built a huge fire in the middle, and then the waves came in and snuffed out the fire and took away all the sculptures that I'd been building, and it was really like intense. The drone was about to run out of battery, and yeah, it was it all. I was able to document it, but it's definitely, I was like laughing, and then I felt like crying, and I was just like, it was a lot. But I definitely, doing these all the time helps me make peace with the fact that everything, nothing lasts.
So it's pretty deep the art. I mean, at the end of the day, when you really think about it, that you put all that effort. And I think was that down by the pier,
Which
the one that you took 30 hours.
that was in front of the beach boardwalk.
Oh, okay. Um, I think I think I saw you. That was a very long video, or it seemed like a long process. But you, I mean, it washes away, and then yeah, it's sort of I guess it is like life. Like we're painting today right now doing this show, and you know when it's over you can't go back. So do you remember all of your art?
Probably subliminally. I take those influences of all the things I've done before, my whole life, um, and I reincorporate ideas over and over again, and try to mix in new things every once in a while, and evolve the process.
Do you I thought I read somewhere, and I do you find joy in the fact that people see your art and I don't know that the expression is happy because, or I think people are happy, but I think people are in awe. I mean, I see
Yeah.
people pull over on the side of the road and look at your art and they just stand there for a long time. Sometimes you're out there doing it, which is really cool because you can actually watch it happen and your videos show that. But does that bring you joy? Is it internal of just doing it, or is it also that people recognize it and it helps change their lives?
It's definitely about, other people and the impact it makes on them, as well as about my own, like, personal need to do it. I think in life you get into these cycles and patterns, and you get up this time, you do this, and there's a lot of, like, mundane things in life that aren't, super exciting, just, life maintenance stuff. And when people see a huge pattern on the ground, it maybe kind of like disrupts maybe any kind of like the dullness of repetitive patterns of life, and like, oh, whoa, like, that's a big pattern on the ground. And maybe they get like more excited about being alive and creating something.
Has anybody written to you recently that do people write to you and say, "Hey, this thing was super cool," or
Yeah,
"Hey,
people have, yeah, I mean, people say a lot of that it had like a positive effect on them. And then, of course, it's the internet. A lot of people, they're really deeply disturbed by it.
why are they deeply disturbed? What do they
I don't
say?"
know.
I don't read all your comments. What
Yeah,
are
I don't
they?
know. They should be doing. I should be, doing something else with my time. And you know, some people don't value art.
I I gotta be. We're gonna go down a rabbit hole here, but it's worth the conversation. Why do you think people believe that they have the right to tell other people how to spend their time, money, and energy?
I don't know. Everyone has. There's a lot of opinions. I have opinions. Um, I I feel like it's a big responsibility to be making large things on the ground. And you know I could put some, more divisive things on the ground, or I could put, like, some of my opinions that not everyone maybe shares. But, yeah, I try to put positive things on the ground. I figure anything you focus on, you're gonna make more of that. So if I wanna have a positive effect on the humans.
I just find it there's so much negativity, and I got to be honest. I think most of it, Brighton, is just simply they're struggling with something within themselves. It's really rarely about you, but you do take it personally because they post it to your thing and they say that, right?
Yeah, I've heard some people that I respect, that have, that are, online, have mentioned that, that the relationships they have, around them in the real world, are really positive, and all the love and support they get, amongst the people they actually see face to face is what they value. And not someone behind a computer screen on the other side of the world that doesn't really, know
I
what you're going through.
I got to be honest. I did not in I had no idea when I come to these conversations. They're sort of like art because they're really just a conversation. I know a little bit about it, and then we just find our way. But I did not expect to hear that people would post anything negative on any of your art when it is so incredible. And I wouldn't even dawn on me, Brighton, that I would say, "Hey, you shouldn't be doing your art." I'm more curious, like, "Hey, how do you actually get to do that all day? Because that's super cool." While other people or myself have to go sit at the 46-inch monitor all day, and how can you make a living doing that?
Yeah.
But not to criticize you, that just seems ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I don't worry about it. I'll just keep going. Um, it's definitely the business aspect of it is a big focus for me, building on that, finding other ways to monetize it. Now, Facebook's sending me a pretty good chunk of money because I had a the most viral video yet from last month. Reached 34 million, got 34 million plays, and now Facebook's sending me a good chunk of money, so I appreciate that.
So this is from the you signed up to be a creator, so you're getting paid per the views.
Yeah, I'm having like ads placed on my videos, and I get some revenue from that through Facebook. So that's
Y-
nice.
I gotta be honest with you. You and I, before we jumped on here, we were talking in my green room, called the kitchen. That the you sort of have a really refreshing approach on art. Many times artists are very pure and don't want to talk about the money or all of those things. But the fact is, we live in on Earth that you got to pay your mortgage, you got to buy
Yeah.
groceries, and you got to get your car. And you just seem super okay with it. Like,
Yeah, well, I think I was reading about Andy Warhol recently and how he felt that having just the importance of the business aspect of art, and how you know then I think feel like that's really important to create something that supports itself, so it can continue to happen all the time and evolve. And
I think that's a super refreshing approach because all too often I think people don't think about that. So that doesn't bother you in the least bit that, hey, you don't feel like I'm gonna use this word, I don't know it's the right word, corrupts your art in any way.
yeah, I don't have the luxury of just doing whatever I want all the time. Also, it wouldn't be as fulfilling because it's it would just be about me and me expressing myself, and it's more important to like make it about contributing to other people's success. And that's how I can support other people's businesses, or I can support their bands, or their farms through what I'm doing, and that's more fulfilling for me anyway.
Well, and I think you said something that's really important. I've been struggling over the last few years with the idea around nonprofits, and nonprofits do good things in general,
Yeah.
but nonprofits also become, as my friend John would say, a self-licking ice cream cone, and they become a marketing engine because the original idea gets lost
Hmm.
because they have to support themselves, and then sort of the idea drifts. And I've thought that really the way to change the world isn't through necessarily nonprofits. There may be some that work, but it's really through for-profit businesses that are able to sustain themselves. What you just said, like, hey, if I want to be able to do art on the beach, I'm going to have to make money. How can I combine this? And it doesn't ruin your art, right? I mean, occasionally you could do your own art.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm doing it all the time, whether or not it's simultaneously what I love and also the work. So it's I'd be doing it all the time, no matter what. But if I can find ways to monetize it and work on the business aspect of it, then I can keep doing it all the time,
What
which is what I
video
want to
was
do.
that? What video was that that did 35?
Um, yeah, that was the most successful one. The second most successful one was like 19 million or something. But the most successful one was the drawing that said, "This is for you."
Who was it for?
It was for you. Whenever I put statements on the ground, people always think I'm referring to a specific person. Um, there, it's meant to be interpreted differently by everyone who's looking at it.
Did you come up with that on the spot?
Um,
Well,
yeah,
you like you. I
yeah. I
mean,
had no idea what I was gonna write. I just drew three circles, and I was placing a grid in the center circle. I do these word fabrics where I place statements and words within a grid, and it kind of creates a fabric because all the words are packed together. So if from a distance it just looks like an abstract pattern, and then you get closer and you realize there's like messages embedded in it. So I just had the grid. I had no idea what I was going to write, um, and that just came to mind in the moment. So
That's super cool. Um, so you write do you write the letters? I'm sorry, I have technical questions, like,
No,
because I
yeah.
just wanna understand, do you write the letters with the same rake?
Yeah, so I can get different widths by turning the rake on its edge, so I can do the finer details with the edge of the rake. Kinda hurts my wrists sometimes, but
You're gonna get carpal tunnel from doing sand art.
yeah, well, good thing I'm doing a different design every day so that I get slightly different wear on the body.
How many miles do you think you walk?
I've been keeping track, over the past year because people often ask that question. Um, I was doing like 100 miles a month, this year, which is, a project every day, pretty much. Some days, there's a low tide in the morning and one in the evening, so I do 2 projects in a day, and then, one time it was actually the high tide came in the middle of the day, washed away the first drawing. I came back to the same spot, did another drawing, um, in the exact same spot and documented both those, and then, it's like 6 hours editing and got a couple videos.
Do you bring your pack your lunch and everything?
I typically don't eat because that, slows me down.
What?
Yeah, if I eat, it'll, kinda make me tired with the digestion, and then also, like, there's the, bathroom-related, things
Oh,
that
well, aren't
occur
there's
from eating.
I mean, you can I mean, on the beach there's some places to hide, some of them have bathrooms.
Yeah, it's just anything that disrupts the process of making something as big as possible, as elaborate as possible, within a limited time window between one high tide and the next high tide.
So you try not to ever disrupt your pattern.
Yeah, just I never stop. Just constantly going and constantly focused. And if I start losing focus, then I'll potentially get off the path and it'll become less like cohesive or of a design.
So that's a interesting topic. How long so you don't wanna disrupt yourself at all. Have you ever been disrupted and tried to get back into the flow? Because this is really what you're
Yeah.
describing is flow state.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it depends on which beach I go to. Certain beaches, there's nobody that visits them. They're harder to access. There's this one spot. I won't mention the name, but there's hardly anyone there, or usually nobody there, because it takes like 15 minutes to get to the actual beach. It's not right next to the road. And then there's other beaches that are extremely busy. So there'll be people coming up to me asking me this and that. So it's kind of how I'm feeling that day, um, determine, not just the beach conditions, but how many people I'm willing to talk to.
How
But
do you handle that?
I'm always extremely nice, even though they're like interrupting me. So I try to like it brings me back to my time over the past decade. I did a lot of different jobs, worked in restaurants and gardens, and worked with an arborist. And one of the things I did was sell vegetables and fruits at the farmers market. So that experience really helped me a lot. Just having the general public, anyone could walk up at any time and say anything. You never know. So being like uh, friendly and being able to connect with anyone, that's a big. That's really been helpful for um, finding jobs and making interesting connections, and so that's been really useful for me.
So do you eventually I'm sure people want to all these tourists driving up and down the coast wanna talk to you all the time.
Yeah, people have I've had some interesting connections made for sure through people on the beach, and um I answer the questions. I tell them about what I do, and if the drone's about to run out of battery over my head, I suggest that maybe we could talk again in 10 minutes or something. But yeah.
Uh, what are some of the questions that people ask you? I'm just curious.
um yeah, they kind of ask A lot of people, say, they say, why do you do that? And then I made a drawing one time that I just wrote the word why in one of those word fabrics to kind of tease the audience. But they asked me,
When they ask you why you do it, what's your answer? Because you must have some standard answer because you can't stand there for 20 minutes explaining it, right?
yeah, I basically this is my why. This is um I'm
You're
basically
throwing some really deep stuff out here. This is Monday morning, Brighton. God, wow.
um I just feel like I'm doing the strongest, contribution I can make, and so I'm leaning into it, and
Well, it's probably good for them to hear that because they're at the beach. Do you feel the the ions like living at the beach here on the coast in Northern California? It's
yeah.
just so much energy,
Oh,
isn't
I
there?
absolutely love it. Yeah, being at the the edge of the ocean, and being outside. I've always really enjoyed being outside. Did a lot of backpacking growing up, and just being out in nature is something that really matters to me. Um, I feel like I'm kind of picking up on the energy of the environment, and that's being like transmitted through me into the drawing. So it's kind of inspired by whatever the energy I'm feeling
How would you
out there.
describe working at the edge of the ocean to someone who doesn't hasn't been Northern California is really interesting because the ocean is generally what 54 to 58 degrees. You have a northwest wind in general blowing over it, which means it's coming on the coast. And your first half mile inland is always pretty cool. And it's just the energy off that water is almost hard to describe. How would you describe it?
Well, every time I return to the Bay Area, I I feel like I'm stepping out of the plane into a walk-in fridge. Reminds me of the, the restaurant. But I do appreciate the cool climate, and the mist, and these like natural patterns like of the ocean and land. And um I did a project in Arizona for this band called Arizona. But it was the first sand creation on a dry riverbed, which was really interesting. That was a totally different environment. We were out there with our team, and it was 18 degrees at this high elevation in Navajo Nation, um, and we're breaking this thick sheets of ice off the buckets of water, so we can pour the water onto these mounds of sand, so we can sculpt them into pyramids, because the band was going to perform in the middle of all these pyramids. But we're pouring them on the sand, and it's freezing over and turning into ice, and then we're having to crack through the ice just to sculpt them, and it was crazy. It's definitely very mild on the coast. It's a nice environment to be out in. And one of the land artists that I admire, people that make big designs, geoglyphs on the ground, he works in the snow, and he walks for sometimes days on end in the snow to make these kind of geometric designs. But I'd like to try that at some point. But I definitely enjoy being at the beach. It's a beautiful place, and a very like mild uh, in California.
The Well, I had a question that you just threw me off there,
Sorry, I
Brighton.
was
It's
kind
not,
of riffing.
no, it's totally fine. Oh, how does how does it actually work? So, meaning the sand, different parts of the beach have different levels of humidity in it. The part
Yeah.
next to the cliffs, in our case, for the most part, are probably drier, or the part inland more.
Well, it takes a certain kind of sand that's finer grained, more silty, to really be a good drawing beach, because it's firmer, and when you walk, it won't leave footprints because the sand's firmer. It also typically requires a flatter beach that's completely covered by the tide at night. Um,
So
and
that it absorbs water almost?
yeah, I mean, it's definitely if the sand moisture is a big concern. If it can be drying out, especially on steeper beaches, which can erase all my work hours into a project, which can be frustrating. But I've been watching these beaches, for many years and studying how the patterns change, and they're always evolving. Typically, the summer is not a good time to draw.
Because
Um,
of the sun?
well, the big wave action creates a large, flat, wetted canvas, and then in the summer, when the waves get calmer, the beach gets steeper. It builds up. It gets more dry area. Doesn't tend to be as good. But the low tides typically switch. They're generally in the evenings in the winter, and then in the summer they'll be in the mornings more often. So what I like to do in the summer, what I did last year to keep my daily practice going, was to get up at 2 in the morning as the tide's dropping, draw most of it in the dark, and then document it with the drone as the sun's coming up, the final elements of it.
So the drawing itself is just moist sand. The dark color is the moist sand, and it stays moist for how long?
Well, it depends on the
Well, yeah,
beach.
no,
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
Also,
what a dumb question, Brandon. You just Brighton just explained that whole thing.
well, usually, hopefully, it'll stay. It'll stay wet for the duration of a project before the tide comes in. Ideally, I had an experience down near Moss Landing where I had an extremely elaborate city drawn out, and I was really excited about it. And right as I was about to document it from the air, wind picked up, started blowing all this dry sand from the nearby dunes. It came across the beach, and in less than 5 minutes, the entire thing was erased. I
What?
could barely see it. So it was just, I didn't expect that.
I mean, that's a heartbreaker, man.
Well, especially when I don't get the photos and videos. I mean, I'm used to seeing it all disappear, but having it disappear before I've even finished it or documented it, it was a little frustrating for
Oh
sure.
my god. One thing that as you're talking about this and you're describing the process, when you see it from the air, it becomes very clear, and as you get more elevation, as
Yeah,
you go
absolutely.
go up. But you described the experience a minute ago where you got up at 2 in the morning and you're drawing it in the dark. How can you even describe how you're keeping track of this? This canvas is huge for people that, I mean, this is bigger than a football field.
Yeah, like several
So
hundreds of feet
this is
wide. Yeah.
huge. So are you thinking about what has been, you're on ground level, so it seems to me very hard. You're taller than I am, but it's still hard to see what you've built. How are you keeping track of that?
Well, a lot of times I start with a more basic skeleton, and then details like get filled in later. So I could build out the whole underlying framework part in the dark, kind of by intuition. And then as the sun's coming up, I can fill in the finer details that require, more vision.
Are you wearing a headlamp or you just doing
No, it's
stars?
it's like totally dark. I can barely see. There's one time I was over at Waddell, and it was 5 in the morning, and this guy came out of nowhere. I was all alone. I wasn't listening to music at that point. All was just like the wash. It was so peaceful out there, so quiet, just the stars above. And this guy started like yipping like an animal. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, it really startled me. Then I started laughing.
I was going to ask you. I'd be a little scared. There's some crazy stuff that happens on this coast at night and during the night. People party down there. They do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I was. I actually, um, I almost completely fell over. I was drawing by the Santa Cruz harbor, and I'm sometimes I walk backwards while I'm drawing, which helps me keep a straight line. And I was happened to be walking backwards. It was totally dark out, and I tripped on a dead seal. And I almost fell on the ground completely. But it felt really strange to be in total darkness, and then the like rubbery feeling of this dead seal, and yeah.
Oh god, dude. So what happens? I saw a video, I don't know which one, and I think a surfer walked right through your art.
Yeah, yeah, sometimes people just walk right over it. I never step on my own line, even though it doesn't show up that much. I'll never step on my own work. I just can't do it after.
Right? So like what I mean, do you look at them? Do they just walk through it? I mean, do you think they not realize? I was like, I mean, it almost is sort of interesting because the art is live.
Yeah,
But
it's
but the
sometimes I'll draw a maze and people will interact with it, kind of walk the path, or I see like families with their kids and the kids will all start, running down the lines of the maze. That's fun. But I never say anything to the people walking on it because it is a public space and I'm taking up a lot of space. If even if it's temporary, but I do try to document it, because it adds to the drama.
yeah, it's almost like it is. The art is live. You have the ocean, you have and I didn't think about I mean, I know about the wind, but the wind picks up and blows dry sand onto it, it's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, it can dry out. The wind can blow dry sand on it. Or sometimes there's a river next to it that'll change course and start eating away. Um, any number of things could happen that are unexpected, and kind of flexing with that is kind of part of the fun. Not knowing totally what to expect and being in that kind of changing space between the land and ocean.
I think it's super peaceful when I fished all the time. You can see the changes and you can feel the changes. And I think in the crazy world of the internet and all the screens and phones, one of the things I noticed about you is you didn't even bring your phone in my house. And it probably doesn't even bother you because
Yeah.
you don't have you're not interrupted during that process, right?
Yeah, it's just music. Yeah, I'm never like looking at the phone, and that is a nice it's nice to get away because of like everyone else, it's become an extension of my brain in this brick in my hand. But I definitely like you know the peace of the time away, and being out in nature, and that matters a lot to me.
And all the beaches have personalities. I mean, you during the year, a few of the beaches here on the coast from the storms are completely changed, and I wonder if they're even going to go back to the way they were. But they're living and breathing, and I think that's what I really love about riding the coast all the time and being on the ocean and just watching how the water and the beach and the land interact and change. It's as if they have a personality. Sometimes I'm just trying to do my loop and try to get back home, but it's very hard not to stop. I always try to take a picture because you would the change over time is just so amazing. And you being down there, you're getting to see it at a micro level, not just on a seasonal level, but actually on an hourly level.
Yeah, it's constantly shifting, and I've noticed as far as like seasonal level, there's certain beaches shift a similar way each year during certain times of the year. So I have a certain beach that I like to go to in this month, and another beach that works better that month. Um,
Do you try new ones occasionally
yeah, I'm always. I tried a new spot yesterday I'd never done before. Um,
between here and Santa Cruz?
I was at Moss Landing.
Oh, south.
Yeah, it was inside of the harbor, which seems like a really strange spot. There's a random patch of sand that's not even um doesn't even have any wave action around it. You'd think it wouldn't be good, but it was doable. I made something. Um
Do you when you wake up in the morning, the tides here on the coast are all this, generally at the same time. They're a little bit different north and south. Do you have a like last night? Well, when I text you, because I said, "Hey, I might come out after the show and take some
Yeah.
pictures," and you said, "Oh, I'm going to go to Pompeii." How do you uh,
Pomponio, I think.
Pomponio? I
Yeah.
always get that wrong. Pomponio Beach tomorrow. Is that because it's just I've seen you do a bunch of art down there. You like it?
Yeah, it's kind of, part of the reason is I was thinking, "Oh, what's a beach that's gonna be close to you so you don't have to drive too far?" But also, it's been a favorite spot. Got incredibly good after the storms, probably better than I've ever seen it, but also it's getting worse right now. But,
The beaches?
yeah, it's not nearly as good as it was, a month or 2 ago. I was there with a team, creating a drawing for Ed Sheeran's new album.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, I was part of this global, like, marketing campaign, and I connected the team from Atlantic Records with sand drawers that I was a fan of from around the world, and then they, like, reached out to them, and, everyone kind of took on a song for the album. So, it was great for marketing, but, I actually brought in a team. um, we had 4 people total, so I brought in 3 people that I've worked before with and collaborated on different drawings, and we were able to go bigger and incorporate an abstract design in my style as well as an exact replica of certain artwork that represented the song.
That's cool. Let's talk about that. You've mentioned this in a
And that was at Pomponio.
oh, was that
Yeah.
Pomponio? When was that?
It was a couple weeks ago.
I missed it. I'll have to look at your Instagram. Is Instagram where you post most of your stuff? You do have YouTube videos too, though.
Yeah, I'm not on YouTube as much. It's Instagram used to be the main thing for me. Now there's both my Facebook and my TikTok are larger than the Instagram by a lot. So
Oh, the TikTok, I could imagine for you, the people like that and can flip through there quickly.
yeah, so there's like 45,000 people on the TikTok and about the same on Facebook.
Why do you think Facebook took off for you?
Well, they're trying to compete in a marketplace. I know a lot of people are telling me, "Oh, like Facebook, Facebook is dead. It's not happening anymore." But I figure there's different types of people and different generations that maybe gravitate towards certain platforms, and I just want to reach all the people that potentially interested in what I do. So I want to be on all these different platforms. Plus, everyone is taking on the short form vertical video thing popularized by TikTok. That's become like such a cultural thing. So that's definitely where I've been putting more of my focus and making these shorter, shorter videos in the vertical format. But I'd like to do more longer stuff and build up the YouTube channel and do that as well.
Yeah, I could see if you would just tape, and I guess it's hard with the drone time, but if or you set a tripod up like we
Yeah,
were talking about and do time lapse, I could see people in the office just putting that on a side screen, just letting it go in real time almost
yeah,
to watch you do it.
yeah. That would be good. I'm really excited about how drone technology's improved over the past 10 years or so, and it's amazing that I now have 40 minutes in the air per battery. So that allows me to get the time lapses and longer videos. And it's only been about a year and a half that I've been realized like, hey, I should film myself, document the process of it getting made. To tell the story that way.
Well, that's originally when I had reached out to you a few weeks ago. I wanted to come out with you and talk to you while you were doing the art. Clearly, I don't know if that's a good idea in your focus, but I also couldn't figure out
Yeah.
like, am I going to hold the phone? Am I going to get a mic? Am I going to mic him? And is that really as all authentic? I know that you're a kind person and might do that, but it
Well,
does change the process for you.
I was doing a lot of projects at Sunny Cove. I don't go there anymore because the sand has changed. It's no longer good. But it was incredible. About a month ago, I was going there a lot, and um, this one day, someone who is a photo video professional, does a lot of real estate. happened to show up, and he said, um, "Can I interview you and like make a mini documentary?" And I was like, "Okay." And then he came back like a couple hours later when I was finishing it, and got the lavalier mic hooked up, and I got to tell more of the story, and then I think the audience really appreciated that. Um, and then I ended up bringing him in on a music video project. So I didn't do very much of the video documentation for this music video. It was I was able to focus on the art more, um, and brought him in to take on some of those roles. So that was really cool, like building teams and doing bigger projects with bringing in collaborators and stuff.
So tell me how that works. This feels like a jazz band to me, Brighton. Like in the meaning, you don't draw it beforehand, right? If you bring a team, which would be other sand artists,
Yeah.
how does that work?
Well, yeah, the day I did the music video it was at Zmodowski Beach, which is down near Watsonville, but it was a pretty simple design, so I figured, other people would be able to, add on to it. And it would be okay if they had slight variations that would kind of add to it.
Well,
Um,
you hesitated there. You said, I think it would be okay if they did slight variations. Well, how's that work?
well, our friend Liam he was inspired by my drawings to start doing rake designs as well, and he has a very distinct, style. So, sometimes it's hard to tell him like I want it just like this because he's such a creative person himself and he's doing his own style. He kind of put a little bit of a spin on because we were drawing a bunch of eyes, and he put a little bit of a spin on his eyes where he did a little flick at the end, and I'm not sure I totally approve of that, but I still think it all came
What
together.
bothers you about that?
I just kind of, I have like a certain vision, for what I want the project to be. But I also enjoy bringing in other people and having them like express themselves within some sort of overall vision or like format. It wasn't different enough to stand out too much.
How do
But
you deal with that? Do you like when you're in the sand, do you just shake your head and try to put your head down and keep going?
I mean I communicate if I'm not totally happy with anything. I'm just it's nice to have people that are really enthusiastic about it, showing up to help, and also it's kind of letting part of it's letting go. Like it doesn't have to be just, I don't have to be an authoritarian sand army sergeant or whatever.
I think that's a good lesson in, well, there's a balance and a good lesson
Yeah.
in micromanagement and not micromanaging and letting someone either do it and make mistakes. But that's really about ourselves.
Yeah. I made peace with it. I'm happy with how it turned out, even though there were other people responsible for various elements.
And when you do you sit down beforehand, like have dinner the night before and say, "Hey, here's what's going on," or is this free flow? Hey, I'm going to be at Tanitas Creek Beach tomorrow morning. Be there at 4 a.m. with your rake and let's roll.
Yeah, it was very free form. It was like, okay, I need you guys to put these eyeballs. I'm gonna make these eye shapes, and you're gonna put these eyeballs in there. And they never used the edge of a rake before. They never done circles before, and you know, you, they were learning on the fly, and they were really enjoying it. They were happy to be there. They all showed up at 5 in the morning.
Is this a teachable skill?
For sure. I mean, a lot of it's just practice, repetition, intuition, but there's definitely some like techniques. Um, and some of them, I got from my father, like watching him do this for many, many years. Um, but yeah, there's for sure like teachable aspects of it.
I don't know. I don't think I mean, I'm just trying to think like if you gave me a rake to go out there with you today, I guess I could draw some squares and circles, but like these patterns you do are so elaborate and so detailed. It almost just doesn't even look real. It
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of like other forms of art. Like if you're learning to play the guitar, y- like anyone can pick up a guitar and play a couple chords and like sounds pretty good. And then you could spend, your whole life dedicated to that craft and getting so far into it, and you can make really elaborate things. So I think it's simultaneously accessible, but it's also like a skill that can be developed over time.
When you were in elementary school, what do you think you were gonna become?
I always really enjoyed being being outside and working with plants and gardening, and I kind of thought I wanted to be a farmer for a while. My uncle's he works with apple growers. He does a lot of works with fruit, and then I was working at farmers market and connecting with all these farmers. And then through my dad's business, he highlights farmers all around the country and the world. But now I'm thinking I want to create living artworks. So take what I'm doing on the beaches, make it out of plants, like an evolution of the whole crop circle concept, but then have it made out of flowers, or made out of things that like made out of cotton grown in a pattern that becomes clothes that are, there's a fashion show in the field, and like create like living environments. The first one of those I kind of worked on my dad with in Arizona, this place called Arcosanti. It's was this architect created this community with really interesting building designs that inspired the early Star Wars movies, like those domed structures in the alien planet. But we created this huge geometric pattern with a 20-foot tall pyramid in the center with a tree on top of it, and you could climb up inside of the pyramid, and there were radiating triangles, fractals coming out of it, 300 feet wide, and then surrounded by thousands of people camping at this music festival. And it was just it was a crazy project. But I'd like to do more stuff like that. Not and other and not, I want to do something with fire, or just like other mediums besides sand. There's biochar is really big in the farming world right now,
What's that?
which is basically charcoal. It's mixed into the soil as it's increases the soil's water holding capacity. Um, and there's other benefits of it, but I could basically turn having giant fires in a pattern. I'm kind of a pyromaniac, but basically have an ethical aspect of creating large fire compositions. I've done some of that stuff, like putting fires in the center of sculptures, like at Sunny Cove, working on a project for my father about 3 years ago, and we built these hills of sand that were up to 15 feet tall, and worked with like teams of people over weeks building this whole thing out. And at one point, I was digging one hill. I was on top of the hill. There are four guys around the base of it, just working all day long on one hill. And I was building a hill on top of the hill, and I was just to like shift the sand because they could only throw it up so high. And I was actually gradually rising up in the air through the course of the day. By the end of the day, I was kind of looking into some houses on top of the cliff.
That's crazy.
But I built a huge fire in the middle of it, which shot these shadows radiating out, and then flying the drone out of it. It's just like an otherworldly looking thing. It was amazing. And then went to Saudi Arabia and did something similar, and then
What?
which lasted. It was in the desert. It lasted for um, it's still there.
What?
There's I went back 9 months later. This is like 6 months ago, and the whole thing was still there, and I documented with the drone again.
How is it how is the sand stay is it just because it's a design in the sand, it's not the moisture at all?
Well, um it's like building hills of sand, so it's
Ah,
versus a two-dimensional thing.
so the wind hasn't gotten it.
No, it's shaped it, but it's still very much there. There's foxes living inside of some of the mounds, and there's like gourds growing off the side of them. It's
How
a
cool is that?
it's a trip. I definitely, I'd like to do more sculptures as well, but, I definitely I appreciate the daily, daily practice of being a sand drawing. And the limited time is definitely it's the main focus, but I'm excited about trying other things.
Well, you could on that I mean, I could just imagine if you could grow something that you could watch over time and people would watch it happen right in front of them, and before they knew it, it was right in front of them, and a few months later, it actually happened.
People have done stuff like with, planting deciduous trees amongst evergreens, and then it forms a pattern, um, when the seasons change.
Or you could do something like that, and then in 20 years, you'd leave a message that
Yeah,
people never knew that you actually left.
yeah. Just, yeah, lots of things to experiment with in the large stuff on the ground category.
One thing that when you said that you built that fire on that pyramid and it cast these shadows and it created this stuff, it reminded me of what magicians do because and I've got books upstairs. I mean, I read it all the time. It's in order to do a magic trick, you have to be aware of humans' perceptions
Mhm.
at some level. I mean, you have to understand humans' blind spots. You have to
Yeah.
understand what they can and cannot see and don't realize. And you sort of do the same thing. Do you think about it that way, or do you sort of do a in Silicon Valley fashion this agile process where you're building it and then you sort of experiment and you say, "Oh, that's cool. Like if we did this, then this would happen."
Yeah, sometimes it's planned out like that, and sometimes it's, like, just through lots of experimentation. Um, yeah.
So you're gonna do a some sand art today. Do you have an idea at all what you'll be doing?
Well, I did the flower of life, which is a sacred geometry pattern, which involves a bunch of overlapping circles. I did that the past couple of days. Um,
What
uh,
be at which beach?
I was at Zamodowski Beach, then I was at Moss Landing, and
Okay.
the day
You're doing the
before,
same one? The same
s-
idea?
and then the day before that, yeah, it's because I'd never done that pattern before. It's really popular, and I was like, oh, that's been done. Now I'm like, hey, I want to, it's something new for me, and maybe I can incorporate it and like remix it into different designs. So I don't know. I was thinking, I kind of want to do a flower of death.
Flower of death? Today's Monday morning, man. That's
Maybe
deep.
I was thinking, like I never drawn a skull. I was thinking I could do like a
Oh, that
skull
would
with
be
like
so
petals
cool.
radiating out of it. I don't know that, but I t- I I typically have ideas like that, and then I'll go to the beach to realize that, and some other idea from 6 months ago will come up. So there's a bunch of ideas on the to-do list that are just kind of stacking up. That's just one that got added in the past couple days, but it'll probably be something totally spontaneous.
This is very much like writing. It's and I don't know if you write. I do a lot of writing. I just wrote a book that was incredibly hard, and I didn't think
Yeah.
it was gonna be hard. But for my process, I'm thinking I don't do well writing the some people just start writing. They're like, "Hey, just start writing." For me, I like to write in my head.
Mhm.
So I'm going over and over and over this, and I write a newsletter every week. And I'm describing this to see if it's analogous to what you do. And yesterday, I'm supposed to write the newsletter on Thursdays. I didn't write it. I write it on Sunday, and I get through this, and I didn't have an idea what I was going to write, and it drives my EA absolute crazy. It drives everybody crazy, quite candidly, because they're like, "Hey, we can't plan, right? You can't plan." And I'm like, "Well, I need to be creative. Like, I if I pl- I think planning is important for sure, but that's not creative. And
Yeah.
even if I plan it, I always change it. So what? Like, why? Then you're going to get mad because you already built all the creatives around it. So it's like I get into it and then I write it in my head, I write it in my head, I write it in my head, and then I go do it.
Yeah.
Do you do the same sort of thing? Because you said I've got a bunch of ideas in my head.
Yeah, it's kind of like a I'm planning, but in a very loose way, not like needs to be like this exactly. It's more of a general like ideas are bouncing around, it's slowly developing, and then
It's
I
almost like you
make it
have
up
to
on the spot.
get it going, right? Because yesterday I got through that, and you're not on the list yet because you filled out the our form in my driveway this morning,
Oh yeah,
but
last minute.
yeah, but that's okay. The I got through the entire thing. I edited the whole thing. It was probably 2.5 hours, and then at the end, I said, no, I don't even want to do this. I want to do something else.
Yeah,
The only reason I didn't do it is because I looked up at that clock last night and I'm taking care of the dogs because Yvette's away. And I was like, I do not have more time. I got to go play with these dogs or they're going to absolutely go insane.
yeah.
But do you get to that sometimes where you're just in it and then you just change it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I a lot of times it's good to be flexible because of the things you can't expect that come up, the unforeseen complications to your process.
That's really trusting yourself, isn't it, Brighton?
Yeah, it's like trusting your intuition um to simultaneously like plan but also do what you feel is right in the moment.
Yeah, I remember one time I was really exhausted from doing one of the companies that I did, and I remember telling my wife, I was exhausted, and I remember telling her, I said, I don't ever, I don't know if it's ever going to happen again. Like, I just because it's not something. Everything that is in your creative process is not necessarily something that we can box up today, document, and do. It's almost like we have control of it, but we more have control of the process that it will develop and we trust that it will develop. Have you ever woken up in the morning and or ever been scared that you're going to get that rake out of the car, you're going to walk down to the beach and it's just like nothing's going to happen?
Um I guess I don't worry about it. I mean, I'm if I don't have any issue coming up with ideas. There's just constant ideas coming all the time. It's I may not be super excited about what I create that day. The funny thing is sometimes the things I'm not excited about, the other people are really appreciate, or the things that I think are like this is my best work, and then no one really is interested in that one.
Isn't it
So
funny how that works?
yeah, yeah, I just I guess I have to admit that I don't necessarily know. I have to surrender myself to the process of making things and not really knowing what's the best thing, but kind of like feeling my way through the dark to grasp at it.
I've had that happen with some shows, I have to admit it, Brighton. I've had some I always try to bring my best
Hmm.
to the and I'm always curious and it naturally usually flows. And I've had shows where I've walked away and just been like, "Oh, I don't even think that's a good show." And then I get 5 emails, 10 emails from people like, "Oh my god, that changed my life." And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my god, like I don't even know what's a good show anymore."
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I mean, I mean, you can know generally from practice, I guess, but
But it goes back to what you're saying. You're like, "Oh, I'm not super excited about the art. It was kind of blah today." And then you get 100 comments in your thing like, "Oh my god, that's the coolest thing I've ever said." And you're sort of like, well, it makes you feel good, right? But it also goes to validate what you said, which is we as humans don't always have a really good idea about
yeah,
what's going to be good and what's not.
yeah. I figure it's more important to just constantly be coming up with ideas and making things and you know that over time that kind of build up that muscle, hopefully create something interesting.
Do you think that your ideas do you think there's such thing as a truly original idea?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. I feel like everything's inspired by something, right? Nothing comes out of a vacuum. But some things are like, clearly derived from something else. So I guess it's not black and white, but I don't think nothing is completely original, but things can be maybe more original, that are, less, like a copy and more of like a intuitive, kind of interpretation of something that already exists instead of like an exact replica.
One of the things that you've mentioned throughout the conversation today, even maybe this started with your dad, is the Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah.
Why does that? What is? And some people may not know what that is. Maybe you could
Yeah,
describe that.
the
And what
Fibonacci numbers, they're these, mathematical patterns that, I'm not that good at math, but, I think I dropped out of, or I failed, geometry in high school or something.
isn't it double plus one?
Um,
So it's 1, 3, 7, 15.
yeah, it's just these patterns show up in nature, all over the place in a nautilus shell, in a galaxy, in the way a leaf is unfurling. Um, and, I wrote a whole just thing about it. We did a drawing, titled Fibonacci phyllotaxis, which is like how leaves come off of a stalk, and that follows the Fibonacci sequence, which was inspired this artwork made out of, radiating pyramids in Mexico at this music festival for, fish that I've been doing the past couple years. But, the way I described it is that, um, you know, these life forms, these drawings, these, podcast studios may not be here forever, but these patterns come back again and again, and they say something about what's deeper, like what's going on in the underlying framework. And I think, tapping into that is really powerful.
And so you keep that in mind as a theme.
Um, yeah.
Is that a yeah or a maybe?
Um, well, I do it, but I don't. I guess I just don't think that I do it. I just, but I guess I do. Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking is because what you just described was they happen in nature, which means that we as humans have an inherent comfort when we see that
Hmm.
and we're attracted to it. We don't even realize that we are,
Yeah.
but we can recognize when it doesn't, right? And then that doesn't feel like it fits. It's a disruption. So that's why I was asking if you keep it in mind, only because you've mentioned it a lot, and your art that I've seen always feels it's amazing. It's amazing, but I don't think that's a feeling. I think that's a description. There's a very calming feeling of ease when you see it. The drawings for listeners, we'll put some links in the show notes. I mean, they're very complex, but they just feel calming. Like they feel good. I don't know that I would say they feel happy, but I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think they just make you think deeply when you see it. And I think you said this way earlier in the conversation, it's disruptive. You're driving down and look at the beach, and all of a sudden you see this pattern, this artwork on the beach, and you're thinking about that. But I just wonder about that. But you clearly have awareness of how those patterns show up in nature, and I've looked at it
Yeah,
and
for sure. I consider, like some people see humans as like we're over here, nature's over there behind the glass in the museum, not to be interacted with. And I see us as like an extension of nature. and it's this is our human nature, and so it's my goal is to like bring those worlds closer together, the human world, the natural world, and like kind of I feel like I'm bridging those worlds with the artwork.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt, think you are. You are. We've touched on it, but we didn't go deep into it. You're going to make this a business, and that's why I asked you what you thought you would be when you were a kid. Because if I
Yeah.
told you, if we went back to when you were in high school, and I was like, "Hey, Brighton, you're going to be a sand artist," you maybe it would make sense because your dad was a sand artist, but he was a chef. Um, you might say, "Well, I don't think that's true." I mean, would that have been?
Yeah, I had no I mean, I've been doing the drone stuff for so long. It's been over almost 7 years now, and that was a major focus, getting the aerial perspective, and I was always, fascinated with technology, and, just, I didn't know exactly, what I've been doing, but I appreciate that. I think that, doing something creative, um, and making it into a business is the ultimate goal, whether it was through all the other things I experimented with or this one, which feels like the strongest, way I can, the strongest thing I can work on.
So you have a business plan, and the business plan is.
Is to, involve as many people, build teams, connect with more people, um, say yes to almost all opportunities. So I had someone reach out, and they they called me up. They said, "Well, this 1-year-old is having a birthday party, and the they want sandcastles and sculpted letters." And that was not something I'd ever done. I'd never even made a sandcastle, which is funny because I'm doing all the sand stuff. And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll do that." So, over the next month, I taught myself to do it. I built a team, I had, and we realized it from and spent 7 hours building this giant mountain of sand and packing it every so often. I connected with the biggest, sand sculptor in my town, and he gave me some of his tools and tips he'd learned from, like, 10 years experience, and then, we went out to the beach and made it happen for them, and so, yeah, I'm really, like, open to different opportunities and trying new things within the sand world, but also having, like, multiple revenue streams is a big deal, and then having different people manage those. So I have someone who's selling all the prints and managing that aspect of the business, so now when people reach out to me, it's like, "Okay, you know, you can, reach out to this email and connect with her, and she'll be very prompt at getting back to you because I'm not always super communicative when I like to get really focused on my work. And then yeah, just finding out selling prints is a big part of the revenue, but the main one is you're creating these designs for different clients for marketing, music videos, and then I also do drone work on the side that doesn't have the art,
But
the live
people,
art.
be clear, pay you to
Correct.
build a piece of art. Do they give you guidance on this piece of art, or they say, "Hey, Brighton," like you and I talk,
Yeah.
like I want to get one because this will be the Brandon White show. I was like, well, I want the Brandon White show on a piece of art on the beach. I mean, that would be so cool.
Well, what I've been selling people on is I love that I can create someone else's symbol or design or letters or message, and then I can embed that in my own artwork. So I did a commission for a winery called Flowers Winery, um, and I traveled up to about 3 hours north in Sonoma County, and I did this whole drawing. It was called Textures of Human Nature. It was kind of like it was based on neural networks. I helped with this design for Yo-Yo Ma that was based on neural networks. So it was kind of inspired by that. And then I dropped all these patterns into there. But the last thing I did right in the morning as the sun was starting to hit it was was place the flowers logo. for their winery right in the center, kind of subtly embedded into the whole bigger picture of the drawing. So it could be simultaneously my creation and also be supporting, someone else's business. So that felt really good.
And when they sponsor you or commission you to do that, then they get the photo really. I mean,
Yeah,
one is they get the moment, 6 hours of whatever tide left that people see it.
yeah.
It's sort of like a big billboard. And then they also get the print.
Well, it's yeah, the service includes the photo, video, documentation, editing is all like a big part of it. And since I'm, doing that stuff every day, I love doing that. So I think quite it's pretty much essential for these projects because almost all of them require that aerial view, and even from a cliff, you can't get that perfect vertical vantage or some other
Do you think
thing.
that other people can edit your videos, or do you think like that because you did it?
I definitely have a certain style that I've developed that I kind of made up my own rules for editing by creating these time lapses that are that are constantly shifting in speed based on music, so that the video is flowing to the music, and I really enjoy the editing to music. Um, Sorry, what was the question?
About editing, because one of the
Yeah.
things that
I
I
would love to get other people involved.
yeah, I
Yeah,
know, but
it's
do
a
you
lot of
think?
work, but
Uh,
I do have a certain style, and I like to
yeah, that's what I was
do it
asking you
that way.
because I think it's when you create the art, it's almost as if you're the best person to edit the video. The problem is that's not scalable.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking for years. I tried to bring on my friend from second grade, who's like my oldest friend. I'm not super close with him, but he's now working on creating grids and mapping designs onto grids because he has experience in graphic design. But we were making videos in second grade, and I was trying to bring him on, like, hey, like you could learn this video editing stuff, and he wasn't that into it. So yeah, I'm hopefully I can bring in someone else that'll kind of see how I'm doing it and replicate that, or like have a riff on that or something similar to that style. But it's a lot to do everything. And then when I did this music video project where I brought in other people and built a team, that felt really good that I wasn't being pulled in all these different directions.
Well, this has been super fun. I know you told me, I said, "Hey, do you have a time constraint?" And you said, "Yeah, low tide's coming up." So,
Yeah,
uh,
it's
when is it coming?
I think it's about 12 or 1
So
or
we're getting
something.
close, or you should be there now.
It'll be all right. I think it's like we have like an hour until I need to be there or something.
Okay, well, I really am grateful for you coming into the studio. It's been super fun, and I
Yeah,
appreciate you
absolutely.
open up and sharing. Like, you're so easy going and so willing to talk about what's happening. So that's really I'm really grateful for that, Brighton. I I ask all the guests this. I think I prepared you for it. If someone says, "Hey, what are 3 pieces of advice for
Yeah.
life?" What and you only get to give 3.
Yeah. Well, I can see the ones for me personally. It's if find out what you're strongest at, what's the biggest thing you can contribute um through various experimentation if necessary. Then make it about helping other people. And then thirdly is what is the best story? Like if your life is a story, if your life is a video, how are you going to edit the video? How are you going to cut out that everything that doesn't matter for the story? And then all you're left with is the most important part that communicates something. So yeah, those are the 3 things.
I love those. Where's the best place for people to follow, find you, and get a hold of you?
Um, I post a lot of stuff on social media. So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook are the main
What's your
platforms I use.
handle?
They're all under my name, Brighton Denevan. I think one of them has a dot between the Brighton and Denevan, and one of them has is Brighton Aerial, which was my former business when I was focusing on drones, all these drone surfaces before I was doing the sand drawings, and I've kind of abandoned that. I just stick with my name, and then that encompasses all the things I'm excited about and all the services I want to provide, and
Perfect.
yeah.
Well, we'll put that in the show notes. Let's get out there and do some art. Thanks again for coming over on Monday morning to record this. Super fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of your art. If you are in Northern California, actually, you don't post anywhere on a schedule, do you? I just a
Uh,
crazy question when you tell me it's
well,
free.
that's because I don't know the conditions.
Right.
The other day, I actually had to go to 5 different beaches before I found a suitable spot because the beaches aren't as good this time of year, and they're
All
always
right.
changing.
Well,
But
if you're in Northern California, Brighton's doing this art almost year round.
yeah, year round. Yeah.
Year round. Take a look at the beach, pull over so that you don't kill someone on Route 1, but you will likely see Brighton somewhere between here and just south of Half Moon Bay to Santa Cruz, and you will never have seen something like this. We'll put the show links in the show notes. Thanks again, Brighton.
Thanks for inviting me to chat.
Bye, everyone.